Podcasting live at the time we recorded it. From the studios in downtown Gulfport, Florida, it's WGAB The GabCast.
Welcome back to WGAB The GabCast, a Gabber newspaper production. I'm Patrick Heinzen, the news and pop reporter for The Gabber, and today I'm seated with two special guests. I'm here with the candidates for the St. Pete Beach District 2 Commission election. This is Nick Filtz. He's the current commissioner in District 2 in St. Pete Beach, and this is Lisa Robinson, the challenger for the commissioner's seat. And today we're going to do a little bit of a forum like we've done in the past for Gulfport. So I've received and written 5 questions total, and we're going to have it where both of the candidates have 2 minutes each to respond to the question that I ask. So one candidate answers the question after 2 minutes, the other one answers the question after 2 minutes, and those 2 minutes can be used however you both want. However, we ask to stay away from personal attacks or anything targeted at the other candidate, as it's more about the questions. But the questions are very general and just about St. Pete Beach as a whole. Prior to that, you're both going to have 2 minutes to give an opening statement about who you are, introduce yourself, and after we're done, 1 minute to kind of close out a quick summary of everything. So, Nick, as you are the current city commissioner, we're going to allow you to give the opening statement first. So 2 minutes of just introducing yourself. Lisa, then to you, and then I'll get into the questions.
Sure.
All right.
All right. Cool. Well, thanks for having us here today. To introduce myself, my name is Nick Filtz. I am the current District 2 Commissioner on St. Pete Beach. I grew up on St. Pete Beach most of my life. My father grew up on St. Pete Beach. Grandparents, great-grandparents lived there as well. Went to school, University of South Florida in Tampa. Worked in New York City for a bit before deciding to move back to St. Pete Beach. I became a homeowner there in 2017, met my wife in 2018, and we had our son, our first child, in December. Shortly after that, I had heard about the vacancies on St. Pete Beach, went and interviewed for the position amongst others, where I was appointed, and I've been serving as the commissioner since. The reason I wanted to do it and step up is I care about the community. St. Pete Beach is a part of my identity. I want it to be a part of my future, and welcoming a child into the world, it seemed like the right time to get involved.
Thank you, Nick. Lisa, if you'd like to take 2 minutes to...
Yes, thank you.
yourself.
I'm a 35-year St. Pete Beach resident, a 31-year homeowner in District 2. I'm a proud daughter of a retired lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Air Force. My father taught me honor, integrity, and service. I grew up playing on the beaches, anywhere from Paso Grill up to Clearwater, and I've seen the many changes, both good and bad. I've been an advocate for 25 years. I was a founding member of our first HOA in 1999 in my neighborhood. I attended the visioning workshops in 2002 put on by the City of St. Pete Beach for envisioning our future of St. Pete Beach. I attended the collaborative labs and participated in those in 2006. I continually, and still do, go to community meetings, commission meetings, district meetings, and participate in labs and workshops. I am very active in my community. My mother raised me to be a strong, independent woman, and as such, I'm outspoken, and I'm unafraid to speak up for our residents and our small businesses. I believe in doing what's right, what's just, and what's fair. This is not about me. This is about representative democracy. This is about representing the residents of District 2. I am running to give the residents a voice that will finally be heard.
Thank you, Lisa. Nick, since you had the first opening statement, I'm going to ask the first question to Lisa first.
Okay.
So the first question that we have that was a mix of, it was actually sent in by a resident, but we rewrote it a little bit, is what do you see as the primary job of a city commissioner?
Primary job is to listen to your residents and represent them.
Mm-hmm.
It's also to be a good steward of your tax-paying money so that it's spent responsibly on good projects, and also to work with your city manager to be able to bring back accountability and transparency and make sure that those items are brought to the community.
Thank you, Lisa. And Nick, if you want to take that
Sure.
as well, same question.
So the job as a city commissioner is the question?
Yes.
So I feel the job as the city commissioner is to be a representation of the city. Like Lisa said, listen to residents, most importantly. Speak with city staff, constantly be educating yourself on what's going on in the city and providing transparency to the residents. I know in my time I've never turned down a meeting or call from a resident, and I think that's very important. Our relationship with the city managers is critical as to how the city runs. I'm proud to have been part of hiring our current city manager, who I think is going to do a great job and has already I've already worked with her in getting some stuff done for residents and for small business owners.
Thank you, Nick. The next question, as I'm sure both of you know very well, the city of St. Pete Beach faces multiple lawsuits, including a recently decided suit from Protect St. Pete Beach. In light of this judgment, how do you see yourself working with residents to settle the concerns that they raise with the city and within the community? And Nick, I'll pass that on to you first.
Yeah, so I'm assuming the lawsuit you're referring to is regarding the appointments
Yes.
and how that went down. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, that was something that they brought up. It has gone to a judge. The judge ruled in the favor of the city on that. My understanding is that they're asking for a rehearing on that, but that was regarding how the appointments went down, which, again, first thing I did when I got the job, I read our charter, and it seemed like to me the city followed the charter, and it seemed like the judge felt the same way. So I think it's important for residents to have transparency. I think that was a unique time for the community, and I do feel the city did the best they could to have a functioning government. Going back to the city manager piece, I think now having a full-term city manager in there who plans on being there for a while it will really help with providing that transparency to our residents.
Thank you. And Lisa, the same question to you. In light of the recent judgment and the other lawsuits facing the city, where do you see yourself working with residents to settle the concerns they raise within the city?
Well, I think a lot of trust needs to be brought back for the residents with their commission, because the commission hasn't been listening to what they've been saying. That's the whole reason that the lawsuit was even brought. Residents' views are being marginalized and being not prioritized, and that is a problem. So it needs to go back to the basics. It needs to go back to representative democracy. It needs to go back to listening to the residents, prioritizing their needs, putting them first, and building back some sort of trust in our government.
Thank you, Lisa. And the next question going to you. The last 2 days we've been dealing with Tropical Storm Debbie, and we've seen the damage it caused up and down the beaches. We've seen the damage it caused here in Gulfport. Where do you see the Commission's role in future storm mitigation? And what do you think that, if elected, you could do within your term, be it the standard 2-year term or a longer term plan? What do you think that you could bring to the city in terms of storm mitigation and helping residents with that?
With storm mitigation, well, number one, we have a flood resiliency issue as it is right now. Very strong on pushing for that, fixing our baffles, fixing some of the items that definitely need maintenance and repair. We have a big resiliency issue here on our beach. The other thing is just the sheer fact of putting down more cement where we don't need more cement in our city. We need to deal with, have more pervious surface than impervious. I think those are big issues, and pushing forward with our flood resiliency programs that we've got going right now.
Thank you. And
Mind repeating that question?
Yeah, of course. In relation to Tropical Storm Debbie, where do you see the Commission's role in future storm mitigation, and what do you think can be done in your term that you could bring up to the city in terms of storm mitigation?
Yep. So, with storms, it starts with preparation and what we can do as individuals, and I know we provide sandbags year-round for free for residents. I think our city has done a pretty good job of promoting things like that on social media and providing alerts. I feel like they did a good job with the most recent tropical storm. So those are kind of short-term fixes, and then as far as the bigger fixes with resiliency and those types of things, there's been talks with raising people's seawalls. There's some mixed opinions on that as to if it will help solve the problem or not. We have some low-lying areas on St. Pete Beach that have been low-lying for a while, but seem to be experiencing more issues lately. And I know since I've been on the commission, there have been things that have come up and been put in place to help mitigate some of those areas. And I think we need to continue to do that. And I think we need to look at other neighborhoods as well, maybe neighborhoods that aren't quite flooding as much, but will be in the future. So we need to look at those things. And I think it's important to, from a budget perspective, put dollars aside for resiliency and continue to do that, because it's obviously a big fear being on a barrier island.
Thank you. Coming back to you, Nick, in a similar sense, St. Pete Beach is a unique mix of a resident metropolitan area with many businesses and shops. At the same time, it's a very significant tourist town. People come often. And in another sense, the beach itself is a very important environmental area. Where do you see the importance of making sure the city balances the importance of keeping the businesses going and the residents happy and new things happening on St. Pete Beach, and the balance between environmental issues, sea level rise, sea turtle hatchling season, and the different environmental aspects that come about right next to the residential metropolitan area?
So a lot to break down in that, but if I'm understanding the question correctly, how it seems like it's, how do we continue to evolve as a city and provide higher end residential, raise the bar for retail for our residents, while at the same time not over improving infrastructure that affects things like wildlife and that. So, what I feel like I've done well as commissioner is I've looked at things on a case by case basis. As far as the development pieces, I've voted no for development pieces. I've voted yes for them, based on how I feel they fit the criteria for our community. Are they for the greater good of our residents currently, and are they for the greater good of the residents and community in the future? And with those things, certainly need to be mindful of things like sea turtles and getting some of these buildings, whether they're residential or commercial, into compliance. I know we have local groups like Sea Turtle Trackers who do a good job. I have family members who are a part of that, and we have great volunteers in our community who look out for that. So, I think it's important that we recognize, like in life, it can be adapt or die, right? So you want to grow, but at the same time, you got to be careful about it. No one, in all the people I've spoke to in my time as commissioner, no one wants us to become a Clearwater Beach. No one wants us to become a Miami Beach. But at the same time, everyone feels like we need some development. We need some improvement so we don't become a rundown beach town, if that answers the question.
Yeah, thank you very much. Same question to you, Lisa. Where do you see the importance of maintaining the retail spirit and the residential spirit of St. Pete Beach while also making sure not to overimpose on the wildlife and environmental side?
I don't think the retail environment necessary, unless you're talking retail as being development as hotels.
Development in general, yeah.
Okay, a little different there. I'm thinking retail, I'm thinking small business, I'm thinking Corey Avenue, I'm thinking some of our other small businesses. 80% of the tax base is the residents of St. Pete Beach. 80% of them, and the many residents, I've knocked on thousands of doors, and they all come back to the same thing. Their concerns with overdevelopment, traffic, congestion, infrastructure, stresses on our infrastructure, and what they're getting back from this development. And it's really on the burden of the residents that are getting the brunt of everything. The residents wanted a small beach town. That's what they moved here for. That's what they'd like it to be. Now, there needs to be a mix, and that they do realize that there needs to be some development, but this is massive expansion that's just happened. Massive expansion. And it's at the detriment and the impact of the community of the residents. And the residents I've talked to, they're united in their belief that they want their community to be what they want it to be. They want to shape it how they want it. They want it manageable. They want it to be responsible. They want it based on fact and not on fiction of the data that we've received from traffic studies that are incorrect. It's a tough issue. There's a fine balance, but at some point, it has to be representative to the community that sits up there and makes those decisions. And if the community says, and the residents say they don't want it, then it's the commissioners who should be representing them, not the other way. You don't sit up there and represent your own personal opinion for what you want and get personal gain out of it.
If you could expand a little bit on the developments, because in the past couple months, the commission voted to approve conditional use permits for resort redevelopment on the beach. Where do you see your role in future redevelopment projects, and where do you see the role of the commission in the past projects as the importance, like you said, the importance of
there's a standard
maintaining
there's
the
a
town?
standard of review. There's 16 guiding principles on that standard for review in our comp plan, and they're outlined in each one of those. And if you can't meet those, you have to mitigate them, and those were not done in the past projects. If it doesn't benefit the residents and there's nothing but impacts, then it shouldn't be passed. That's where I stand.
Thank you. And Nick, if you'd like to respond to that in the same way, the question about development, the redevelopment project specifically with the conditional use permits that have been appointed, and where do you see the commission's future relationship with those developments and more redevelopment projects in the future, and the your opinion on the previous redevelopment projects that were...
So I think it's important to understand both the Serrata and the trade winds. What they asked for was what they are allowed to ask for, if we felt it met the criteria. For example, both passed staff review. The Serrata, the planning board passed 4-1. Trade winds passed 5-0. The Serrata was asking for pretty much as max density as they could ask for, just under 75 units per acre. The trade winds was asking for like 63.18 units per acre, so they were not asking for max density. They could have, and could have resulted in another, close to 300 more units. And Lisa brings up a very good point about the tax burden, and our comprehensive plan speaks about that. And it used to be that residents paid in the early 2000s about 88%. Now it's more like 80 to 20%. The Trade Winds project alone is proposed to shift that by about 6%. Just that project.
4%. Let's correct that. 4%.
I believe it's 6%,
4%,
but
per the staff report.
So anyway, a healthy local economy would be about residents paying about 70%, between 60 and 70%. So that's important to understand, to help keep our taxes low. Our millage rate as a city is one of the lower millage rates in the area. So that's all important things to understand. I think it's also important to understand that there are a lot of residents out there who want development, who understand the benefits of it. Like I said, I've spoken to thousands of people in our community over the past several months, and it's not about what I want. I've heard people coining me as pro-development, and that's not the case. I'm pro what's best for our community, and if it meets the criteria. So that's how I feel.
Thank you. To both of you, feel free to respond to what the other person says. I just ask that A, it be appropriate and not personally directed, and B, during your time. So if I ask a question and you have 2 minutes to say what you have to say, and if you want to take 30 seconds of that to respond, feel free. The next question I had, first to you, Nick, getting a little deeper into infrastructure and what residents want. I'm a resident of St. Pete, but one of the main things that I've always noticed when I'm down in St. Pete Beach is traffic. Mm-hmm. And I know that that's something that a lot of residents talk about. And I want to see how both of you kind of feel about what can be done to mitigate the traffic problems that are happening? Because I know that it's a small area. It's difficult to kind of expand the roads, but in the same sense, I wonder if there's things that the commission can be doing to kind of set a plan for the future on how to mitigate that traffic. So, Nick, if you could address that.
Yeah. So, I'll touch on a couple things with that. With traffic on St. Pete Beach, the traffic, the worst it gets is when we close down a road for construction, right? And it's important to understand that the city doesn't own Gulf Boulevard. It's a state road. So there's only so much control we have over it. And most of the traffic comes from people in the surrounding cities. Like you said, you're from St. Petersburg. Obviously, there's been a lot of development going on in St. Petersburg over the past decades. And there's going to be continued development in surrounding areas such as the Skyway Marina District. South Pasadena now is proposing some development. And those are the people that are taking the trips to the beach. Whereas hotel guests, sure, they may rent a car, they may come to the property, but often they're spending time on property. They may go to the ballpark for a game, and we have things like public transportation for that, the Sun Runner, the Freebie, which I think is a great service on. And in my time as commissioner, we've had frequent meetings about the Freebie and how to improve it and make it better for the residents and for the community. So I think, public transportation's a key part of that. And we can't stop the development in the surrounding areas of the people, of residential buildings with people who will have cars and will be coming to the beach. But I know in the two development hearings we had, I asked a lot of questions about parking spaces and what was going to be allowed for the public, because I wanted to deter creating more public spaces for the public to come parking at. So those are some things as far as traffic goes.
Thank you, Nick. And the same question to you, Lisa, just about traffic mitigation and what do you think could be done better in the city with traffic?
Well, number one is going to be having reliable data as far as traffic studies. We don't have that. We did not get that with either the trade winds or the Serrata. And without that data and knowing what's going on in surrounding communities, as we are the day trip place to go to, you don't have a basis for that. Level of service, if you get your level of service to an F, it ceases. You cannot build anymore because you cannot expand Gulf Boulevard. We don't have reliable data right now based on trade winds or the Serrata to go forward. Without that, you don't have anything. It's all fact. It's all fiction and not facts, fact-based. So the only way to do that is you have to have a baseline of where you're at right now. The the trade winds traffic study actually came to a conclusion that in 2029, even with a 2% traffic increase, in 2029, the traffic would be less than it is today, and that's impossible.
All right, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. What do you, Lisa, see as the biggest challenge that the average St. Pete Beach resident faces in their daily lives? And what do you see as the biggest challenge that the average St. Pete Beach business sees in their daily lives?
I would think in daily lives on St. Pete Beach, it's going to be taxes, just your tax assessment. It's a 30% increase, and we're not getting any rollback on that. And as well, insurances for flood, for wind, etc. That's going to be the big kickers there. For businesses, the smaller businesses don't really get a fair shake. They don't get as much as what the large resorts get. They're not getting their fair share. And I just recently saw that with what happened with a small site improvement grant that was given that just didn't go anywhere. And businesses had banked on being able to get that money to do their improvements, did it, and then the city, it stagnated. It went nowhere. So there's a lot that can be done for them, and the concerns for those businesses, and the ones I've talked to too, are the fact that I get a lot of them that don't want that feel the opposite. They don't want or don't need the overdevelopment because they base on the locals, on the local economy, on the local, and they get the local traffic. They're not tourist-based.
Thank you. And Nick, the same question to you. What do you see as the biggest challenge for the average resident of St. Pete Beach and the average business of St. Pete Beach?
Yeah, so a couple points. As far as the taxes, people's taxes are going up because property values are going up, right? That's the world we're living in right now. As I stated before, we've kept our millage rate low. We did that this year. We kept it at the same rate, which I think is a great thing for our community. Insurance costs are rising no matter what type of property you own, and that's a statewide issue, and it's evolving and changing every day. So I think on a local level, two of the biggest complaints I've received being a commissioner is parking and permitting. So I think we need to work to continue to improve our permitting process, allowing people to make improvements to their home that will help them save money on insurance, allowing them to do it quicker. Because some people just give up or they won't make improvements or they'll do them without permits. So I think if we improve there, that'll help residents make their homes more storm-proof, help them save on insurance costs. And same for local businesses, just making it easier for small local businesses to operate, to open, to improve. I know just this week I helped a local small business owner who was having parking issues for their employees. And we worked with city staff on giving them an option for paid parking permits for their employees. I've talked to other small business owners in the community that have closed their doors because of parking issues. So I think those are things we need to continue to improve on is parking and as far as permitting, allowing people to improve their businesses. Thank
you very much. And the last question I have for the two of you might seem like a bit of a big, like a doozy or a pretty unrealistic situation, but let's say it came budget time and the budget had a $100,000 shortfall. Where would you propose to cut funds from to meet the budget requirements? And on the opposite side, if it had a $100,000 surplus, where would you say to put those funds? You can take some time to think about it.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's it's a relatively unrealistic situation, but
Shortfall,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be doing 10-foot sidewalks to nowhere. We spent $50,000 on that. That was around a church. It's a sidewalk to nowhere. We spent $90,000 on a barge that never came about for fireworks. There's definitely some spending that shouldn't be going on, and that needs to be accounted for. We did our last city manager. There's $100,000 of undeliverables that can't be accounted for. So there needs to be accounting, and some people need to be responsible for any of those shortfalls. As far as an overage, we've got some areas that we could probably put those into, parks, recreation, as well as supporting some of our small businesses. Again, I think that site improvement grant was a nice program because it helped to improve the outside of the site for the small business. It makes it a little bit more attractive for residents and for visitors alike.
Thank you. Nick,
Yeah. So I'll start with the positive. If we had a surplus of where to put it, I think storm resiliency is so important because that can equal big costs for our residents if there is flooding. So I think areas there, our parks in the past several years, I think have improved. I'd like to see them continue to improve. I know we're talking about putting a playground back in Hurley Park. That part the city would be paying for, part would be as form of a donation. That's something we spoke about at a commission meeting, and I think that's great. I think that's great to attract more young families to the area, like St. Pete Beach was a long time ago. So, and then as far as if we were $100,000 short, again, I think a lot of it goes back to staffing. Previous city manager was well before my time. I understand there were some shortfalls, some mismanagement alleged, potentially differing of opinions on projects. So I think it's important from a staffing perspective to have that ironed out, which again, to go back to our city manager who oversees that, we're really happy to have her, Fran, in there to help iron that stuff out so that doesn't happen. in regards to the concrete, I do agree with Lisa on that. Most recently, Gulf Winds Drive project, we sent back the design to help eliminate some of the sidewalks and make better bike lanes for our residents. So.
Thank you, Nick, and thank you both for your time. I want to give you both a minute to kind of end off, give a summary of what you wanted to say, and if there's anything else you wanted to touch on, feel free. Nick, I'll start with you.
Cool. Well, thanks for having us. I appreciate it. It's been probably one of the greatest honors of my life to do this the past several months. Certainly be honored to continue to do it. Like I said, St. Pete Beach is a part of my identity. I want it to be a part of my future. I deeply care about the community, and ultimately, I want to make decisions what's best for our city. If anyone ever has any questions for me, can I give my phone number?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, if anyone ever has questions for me or would like to meet with me, I love meeting face-to-face with people. That way we can both learn from each other. My number is 727-422-0451. And thanks for having us. Lisa, I wish you the best of luck with the rest of your campaign. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. And Lisa, feel free to whatever you have to say.
Thank you. I have been and always will be an advocate. My commitment has been unwavering. I've knocked on thousands of doors and heard the same concerns that I've heard 22 years ago. Overdevelopment, traffic, stress on the infrastructure, overcrowding. As your D2 commissioner, I promise I will listen. I will bring back accountability and transparency. I will prioritize residents' needs. And I will vote only for manageable, responsible development that must benefit the residents and not be at the residents' lifestyle or financial expense. A vote for me is a voice for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to both the candidates for your time. We'll catch you next week on WGAB The GabCast, a Gabber newspaper production.